recent years has been this 360-degree technology, and I think YouTube and Facebook have really started to perfect that because you can do simple little edits on your phone or on your computer or on YouTube or different things like that that make it very basic for the common person to use.
I think what it has done, in many ways, it's taken us full circle to the earliest days of cinema. Before there was such a pure delineation of labor, many people did many things, right? Or one person did many things. I think that you're starting to see perhaps a little bit more authorship, or the authorship return. That is, if this person is the writer, director, camera operator, editor, you can't get more singular voice than that.
Now, for somebody that goes to school and learns about this technology, 360 will capture the essence of everything from all different sides, from a 360-degree view.
You really have no safe space.
And just think of how that can be incorporated into different films, into segments, into news broadcasts, or into documentaries or movies, and capture it from a whole new generation, or for a whole new generation.
You could take a video and place it in multiple locations on the web, YouTube, Vimeo, and Facebook, in planetariums. And
when you come in here and you're immersed in a planetarium show and it's all around you, you get that immersion that you get with VR. You also get a communal activity. I oftentimes describe these programs to people who may not be familiar with them sort of like IMAX films, except for being projected on a flat screen like most people are used to IMAX films. These are projected on a dome, and so you're surrounded by it.
By converting into a fisheye projection, or decide in post that you could take any shot that you want from the sphere that you projected and create a conventional video that way.
So now everything has to be either integral to the composition, that if it happens, if there's smoke that emerges, it emerges from something organically in the frame that's logical, or it has to emerge from above or below the frame line. And that changes the aesthetic.
So it's going to be real interesting what it brings over the next couple of years, and what people can work on.
But we've seen lots of fads and trends in audio over the years, and even in video over the years, that were the newest, latest, greatest thing, and then they just kind of died out. And I want to make sure that before I invest any major money into starting to record that way, that it is definitively going to be supported and stick around.
To me, standardization is hardware. It's same format, same output. It's everybody on television is 59.9i. There's not an environment where standardization doesn't do anything except make it easier for the point of entry. It doesn't make life on the project any easier. It makes it, standardization will make it cheaper, makes it more cost effective, easier to do, faster from start to finish. But it doesn't tell the story any better. And it doesn't make the cameras any better. And it doesn't make your point of view as a director any better. And it certainly never makes the story any better.
All of us have a movie camera in our pockets now. So what has happened is a great many more people are making images who are untrained in classical image structure. And so because it's so much easier to create these things, you're having a dumbing down, you're having a quality shift downward that in one way, in one respect, is making those people who do train, who do practice, who do study, makes their work stand out.
Well, as far as my wedding business goes, we like to present a professional quality product. We like to use brand new cameras. We've used DSLR cameras. We've used some of our new JVC 4K cameras. and things of that nature. So what differentiates us is a professional quality product. Anybody can just pull out a cell phone or an iPad and, get some footage of the wedding, but we like to present it in a professional quality way, and I think that kind of separates us from anybody just whipping out a cell phone or an electronic device. And it doesn't really concern me of all that nature, because I just think we're different.
Any concern I would have is really a concern about any new technology, is when people kind of get wrapped up in the technology as a means. Instead of a means to an end, it becomes the end, and people just get fascinated with the new technology, as opposed to, it's never ever going to take the place of good storytelling, no matter what the paradigm is.
Every year, the video business is going to change, and the video business is going to add new and exciting things to it. And I think 360 degrees can be useful if used appropriately, and if used, for something that is going to capture the essence of a moment from all aspects of an angle.
Well, it gives viewers a new experience. That's one thing that I feel a lot of people believe is lacking at the theater is experiences. Really, when you go to a movie, you go there to feel what the characters feel and share these emotions with other people in the audience. But really, that hasn't been enough for people. With something like 360 and the VR headsets, it'll allow people to be more immersed into the stories.
I think that we would feel like we are living the situation. We're not an outsider to it. It's really like we're there, living in that moment in time.
However, that can be limiting, because now we're forcing the viewer to understand the reality of what the story is that we're introducing them to. That they have the ability to explore and be more immersed in the story.
If we can find the universal human truth in the character or the characterization, then it doesn't matter, excuse me, it doesn't matter if that's a chick flick or, an action flick or, some kind of Bushman Outback Sierra adventure. I can see in that person, even though they might be different from me in time or space or ethnicity or gender, I could see something of me in them. And when I see something of me in them, then I go on that journey with them. Without that, it's just anthropological. Isn't that interesting that happened? Isn't that interesting? The rock went down the hill.
If you don't have story, you have the prettiest picture in the world. If you're not telling something visually, it's not going to be immersive to the viewer. In a single user environment, you have to think about how somebody reacts, somebody sees, somebody feels about what you're shooting. And again, that gets down to what's the story you're trying to tell. So the narrative is how you define where the subject goes, how the subject moves, and everything else. But it's also the story that do you want to get involved with? A narrative is just that. Do you want to be involved with the story? As the viewer, are you immersive? Does it draw you in?
To put yourself in an environment where you're experiencing other people, other situations, actually is very good for you. Now, assuming they're not dangerous, right?
If you're reading something and you're actively imagining what's going on, that's what cinema is supposed to be. It's supposed to enliven your brain.
When you watch a movie, more times than not, you become that character. You become the villain, or you become the damsel in distress. Just how in the VR or the virtual reality experience, you'll still have those opportunities to be the damsel in distress or the hero or the villain. It's just now it's going to be done in a more submersive way.
It's just, you have to think about it a little bit differently because there's nowhere to hide. You can't hide the cues, you can't hide the cuts, you can't hide a lot of the things that we normally do in cinema.
Now, one thing that we also have to worry about with virtual reality and augmented reality and storytelling is when it comes to fantasy-based things or fictional things, psychologically it could be dangerous for viewers under the age of 12 to be exposed to, because this warps their mind in the reality versus fantasy components of rationalization.
Because naturally, when you're a teenager, you literally do feel, in a sense, like you're living this, fable, like that people are watching you. That's why you need to be cool, right? And so when you're a teenager, you have to be cool because you think everybody's watching you, even if they're not. Exactly, yeah. So and that's a fantasy, of course, that not everybody's watching you. As a matter of fact, they don't even know you exist, right? But you somehow believe they do. And so that is always one major problem that anybody would have, is to distinguish reality from fantasy.
Well, we see a bit of this, I think, in gaming. I've taken a look at some of the games, like from the point of view, these war games. I think one of them is named Mortal Kombat, where it's, I remember seeing a little bit of it. I didn't wear the goggles or anything like that, but I thought it was very somewhat disturbing how immersive it could be if it's not a positive topic, but that's just me and my limited experience. However, seeing a movie in this way, could be really great and educational, such as if the BBC did a documentary series on dinosaurs. If you were to see that in a virtual reality environment, that could be very visceral and very educational.
If I want to live in that virtual environment and I really want to do exploration as opposed to narrative storytelling where somebody is, supposed to catch the movie, and I just want to explore that virtual environment, I think that there's great potential in trying to set up this 3D world that I can hear, and as I turn, I feel like I'm really immersed in it. Hence the idea of why they call Ambio also immersive audio or 3D audio. So same thing with documentaries. If I was watching, say, a nature documentary and I wanted to capture 360-degree video of a rainforest, and I wanted to look in the trees and see the different animals, and I wanted to look at the ground and hear the, maybe the water dripping off of tree leaves or something like that. To be able to capture that, and as I turn my head one way or the other, to be able to really focus on that and hear, as I look at something, the sound raise or lower. I think that that's a really, really exciting idea.
I will say this, right? What's neat about virtual reality in therapy and psychology, they use, for example, virtual reality glasses. So if you have a phobia, if you're afraid to get in an elevator, things like that, you can actually put on glasses that simulate going up in an elevator. You can take them off when you get scared. Because when I was in grad school, if somebody come in with a phobia, I'm afraid of elevators and things like that, we put on the virtual reality glasses, so he would have the sensation of going in an elevator. But just to make it realistic, I used to throw a basketball at him and I go, "Hey, 5th floor, sporting goods," and just make it realistic. But so in some sense, they can really help people.
But once we start taking this viewing space and it's no longer being, it's not virtualized, it's real, we're now going to have this influx of data that's being generated by everything around us to be able to give us, the viewing sense that you'd have in, say, Minority Report or the Netflix show Altered Carbon, where you're constantly have this influx of data, advertisements, noise, information that's coming at you. That's where I think augmented reality is. But the other side of augmented, this whole virtual reality has moved to augmented reality rather quickly.
All right, so VR and augmented realities, mixed realities, are critical now for helping train surgeons, pilots. It creates stimulations that will reflect workplace situations or operations. It allows them to use virtual tools with resistance to kind of understand how tissue, muscle, and bone can be cut.
But as you move forward through the technology, you have to think about where it's going and what it's going to do and what's the next step. Because if you're working for now, by the time you deliver what you need, it won't be right. and that's the virtue of filmmaking nowadays. If you're working to the technology as it exists today, without a story, you're dealing just with the technology, by the time you deliver the project, all the technology you'll be using will be out of date.
So it all comes back to the story.
It always comes back to the story.
Preach.
Period. That's it. That's the done.
I mean, you just-
That's it right there. That's the best answer I could end on. It all comes back to the story.